I started doing meditation with teams in 1990. I was a junior college pitching coach, did that for 3 years. 1992, I got with Rich Hill, who at the time was at Cal Lutheran, who now is at University of San Diego. He was recruiting a couple of my kids. I went as the mother hen with the kids to Cal Lu. And Rich and I started talking about the mental game. No one was talking about the mental game other than Ken Revisa and Bob Rotella and some of the, real classic sports psychologists. Rich dug it. He was into it. Next thing I know, I had like a quote-unquote internship for a year with Cal Lutheran. And we start doing meditation with the group. And now, whether it's Foxy at Mississippi State, Oregon State was meditating more or less every day the year they won the national championship. It was optional. Scott Brown, I did a meditation with Vanderbilt maybe a month ago through Skype. I don't know if I should be saying this or not, so I hope we're not on tape. But he read a book over last December called Presence, I believe is the name of the book. And it flipped a switch with him. Not that he wasn't a huge mental game guy to begin with, but something flipped to where every day, including the national championship game day, by the way, there was some form of mental practice done, whether it was meditation, breathing, relaxation, visualization. They didn't miss a day. So I guess what I'm saying, and I look on Twitter, and more people are posting players laying down in the grass. So I did that in 1982, is where I first kind of got introduced to meditation. I was at Granada Hills High School in the Valley. And so it's pretty crazy to think that here we are in 2019, and now this is starting to become normalized. But it's not normalized enough. I can tell you right now, I am still in the loop with a lot of players and teams and agents and scouts, and these kids need it. They need it. And I know a lot of talks the last couple of days have talked a lot about caring about the kids. So that's my opening. What I want to do to cut to the chase tonight, I'm going to take you through a 5-minute breathing exercise, which is almost always a lie. It'll probably be closer to 8 minutes. I would love to do a 20-minute exercise, but 5 minutes should do it. If you leave here tonight the way I left in 1982 by that experience, I hope it flips a switch for you that inspires you. Maybe not tomorrow. It's going to happen every day, but it starts to get you thinking about this. And God, I was talking to Rick Knapp today, brought up something. He said, I keep trying to get better because I keep thinking, what's going to last 20 years from now, what I'm doing right now. And I thought that was a very profound point. So I hope whatever starts tonight gets the ball rolling for you going forward, and maybe you start doing more research on this stuff. So we'll do a little breathing exercise. When that is done, we'll do maybe a tiny bit of overview, maybe some feedback from some of you about your experience. We can maybe relate it to something I'm not going to get into tonight, which on YouTube I have a whole talk about the process and what's called game management. How do you manage the game? That's something that a lot of sports psychologists, of course, talk about, and I love that stuff too. But to me, if I was going to go to one topic, it really would be mental practice. And then once that's done, we're just going to open it up for anything on throwing, anything on mental game. But I know a lot of you guys in here and gals, want to talk about maybe throwing and long toss and protocols and all that. That stuff is just, I've been doing that for 29 years too. I love that stuff. So, and again, this will materialize in some ways. I know Max is here. Maybe Max Weiner with the Mariners. We talked about maybe having him come up as well and being part of this. So without any further ado, here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take you through the breathing exercise. You don't have to do it. I'm a real easygoing guy, by the way. You don't have to do this. I would urge you to try it if you've never tried it before. I will walk you through it, so you don't have to worry about doing anything. But I would say this, have an open mind. You never know when you open a door what's behind the door. Just have an open mind. And then when it's done, it happens only 100% of the time. When it's done, there's unbelievable fodder. I did say fodder. There's unbelievable fodder that will be able to relate this back to the mental game. So before we get going, is there any brief questions about anything, about tonight, about any of this format? And if not, in a second when I give you the cue, sitting in a chair is great. Leaning against the wall is really good. There's a saying in meditation, the more erect your spine is, the more alert the mind is. So that's just something to keep in mind. If laying down is what you need, because a lot of us might actually need to kind of chill, lay down. I would just say, if you think you're going to fall asleep, maybe hoist yourself up so you're sitting in some fashion. Okay? Raise your hand real fast. How many people in here have either done some yoga, some meditation, some martial arts? That's a good start. I will give you a couple, I don't like the word necessarily rules, couple of principles. Just notice as I start talking, if you feel a need to move something, I'm going to give you like a 20-second grace period. If you need to scratch something or move, do it. Try your best to remain still. Another great line I love, and I'll give you some of these lines later if you want to write them down, is, the stiller the body gets, the stiller the mind tends to get. And if you study things like the zone, which we're not going to have a chance to get a lot into, the zone state is basically a quiet, empty, still place. So a lot of things we're doing with meditation actually is you're creating a practice, a skill set. And a line that I will give you before you leave, it's 5 of the most important words I've ever heard, is you become what you practice. And what we're doing is a practice, right? Ground balls, fly balls, BP, bullpens, it's all practice. So once we get still, just do your best. If you have to move, you have to move. But try to, and it's not like a still this, it's like hard focus, soft focus from the pitcher, right? Try to be more like still, letting go, still. Okay? I recommend you shutting your eyes. You don't have to, but it tends to remove a lot of extra stimulation. And then lastly, for the still thing, if you're leaning on your hands, at some point, I'm gonna want you to not feel that pressure and tension in your arms. So I'd recommend if you can sit in a way that you don't have to lean back. If not, I would recommend you just lay back, because this position right here is probably going to create tension in your arms, and at some point you're going to probably want to move. So again, the goal is to get in a position where you don't feel like you have to move anything. Okay? At some point, I'm going to get you to your breathing. Like I said, you don't have to do a thing. You're just going to follow along. So the first thing I want you to do, which I actually enjoy a lot, this I just enjoy as a relaxation technique, is I want you to notice any part of your body that is physically in contact with something that's supporting it. So in this case, it's the AstroTurf. Obviously, it's the wall. But it's more than that. I want you to notice not just like, okay, yeah, I kind of noticed my calf is touching the AstroTurf. What part of your calf is touching the AstroTurf? So I want you to get to a point where you're actually so in tune with every little piece of your body. It's a little game, actually. And I'm telling you, it takes a little extra effort to do this, but it's fun. Notice every single part of the chair or the AstroTurf or the pole or the wall, and notice what parts of your body are being supported. Okay, so just do that for a second. If the back of your heel is touching the carpet, only a portion of the back of your heel is touching the carpet, right? Not the whole heel. And same with your glutes. If you're sitting, your entire butt is not touching the chair, right? Part of it is. And your back against the wall. You're going to notice maybe it's your shoulder blade touching it. Maybe it's part of your shoulder blade. It's not the whole back. And so I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds. And this is like a very grounding exercise. And what this is really doing is helping you learn what it means to let go. Letting go, by the way, another quality of the zone. You're going to hear this theme come up a lot. What is the zone? Well, one of the qualities of the zone is letting go. Letting go, another word for letting go is trust. You're trusting. Athletes perform at humans perform at their best when they're in what's called trust mode. Okay, so you're allowing something else to support you. So you're not trying now to relax or let go. You're actually doing the opposite. You're saying, what is supporting me? Well, the chair is supporting me. If the chair wasn't there, you'd hit the ground like a ton of bricks. If the carpet wasn't there and the ground wasn't there, you would free fall through space. So try to get the sensation of letting go. Something else is supporting me. And then you may notice your mind starting to think about some things. Why am I doing this? What does this mean? I can't wait to go get something to eat later. And that's fine. So the next thing we're going to do is bring our awareness to our thoughts. And notice that thoughts come up. They're not right or wrong. They're not good or bad. They just are. So what I want you to start to notice, if thoughts come up, just let them be. There's a term called neutrality. It means neutral. If a thought comes up, instead of dancing with it like a dance partner, we're just going to let it do whatever it wants. We're not engaging the thought. The thought can be there. We're not pushing it away. We're not blocking it out. We're just letting the thought be there. Again, whatever is supporting you, the wall, the seat, the turf, see if you can get to the point where you are totally letting it go like a puppet on strings. Or you're laying on a raft in someone's pool, and the arms and the legs are just dangling in the water because the raft is doing all the work. And you'll probably notice just by doing this exercise already, there's a sense of relaxation, or there's a sense of lightness, or maybe a sense of heaviness. And if a thought comes into your mind, it's perfectly fine. Just bring your awareness back to a part of your body that's touching something. And we're just going to gently shift our awareness now, our attention to the breath. And I don't want you to worry about trying hard at all. I just want you to notice what your breath is doing. You're going to notice there's an inhale, obviously, at some point. And you're going to notice there's an exhale at some point. And you're going to notice there's a space between the inhale and the exhale. And you're going to notice there's a space between the exhale and the inhale. So there's 4 parts to your breath, no matter what. Always. And so what I want you to do is play a little game. Can you be in tune, sort of like you have 4 at-bats or 4 pitches? That's it. Every cycle of a breath, you have 4 at-bats, or you have 4 pitches. And can you be present? Okay, can you be in tune with, oh, what's my inhale doing? And it's not right or wrong whatever your inhale is doing. Whatever it's doing is perfect. But can you notice it? Okay, my inhale is doing whatever it's doing. And there's the gap between the inhale and the exhale. And then, of course, there's the exhale. And there's a gap between the exhale and the inhale. And now this comes down to, okay, now I'm either present or I'm not. And you don't win or lose, but that's the accountability now. Or that's the goal. Can I just follow my breath? My thoughts may come in my mind, and that's just perfectly fine. I like this analogy. I'm a private investigator. How well can I get to know my breath? The nuances of it. Is my inhale quiet? Is it fluid? Is it choppy? Is it loud? Is it smooth? How long is the gap between the inhale and the exhale? When my exhale comes out, you'll probably notice it's longer than your inhale. And is the exhale fluid? Is it short? Is it long? Again, not right or wrong. And then, of course, when the exhale exhausts, you'll notice there's a space between the exhale and the next inhale. I'm just going to give you a couple more cycles. At some point here, pretty soon, I'm going to start to transition you, but I just want you to play this little game. Can you stay with those 4 parts? It's almost like the breath is a horse, and you're getting on the horse for a ride, but you don't have a destination. It's just let the horse be free. Let the horse gallop. It's out of the barn. It goes anywhere it wants. And now you're along for the ride. And so now the last part of this is I'm going to let the breathing continue to create its own pace. And I'm going to give you about 60 seconds, and what I want you to do at this time is you don't have to do anything. You don't have to follow the breath. If you're feeling some sense of maybe relaxation or calmness, or just a little quieter, just enjoy a sense of slowing down. You don't have to be anywhere. In fact, this is one of the healthiest things you can do for your system on many levels. So just know you're watering your plants, you're nurturing yourself. If any thoughts come into mind, it's fine. Just let them melt away. Just come back to this feeling of letting go. Just trusting the chair, trusting the turf. Maybe just enjoying the peace and quiet. And the way we're going to transition out now is we're going to take a few breaths, and I just want you to stay with me here for a moment. And what I want you to do is when you feel the next inhalation come in, I just want you to exaggerate, take in a little bit more air than normal. So try to expand the breath. You're probably a lot softer and looser, so you probably will get more oxygen. So just take a slightly bigger breath on the next inhale. And what I want you to do is just hold that breath softly for a moment or two. And then when you exhale the breath, see if you can release the breath as evenly and smoothly as possible. And then after the breath exhausts, just let the inhale come back as a reflex. So you don't have to try to bring the inhale back. It will come back, of course, instinctively. And I want you to start that process. We're going to do 2 more of those breaths, okay? So when the next inhale comes to you, just help it out gently. Maybe taking a slightly bigger breath. And again, we're going to hold the breath for just a moment. And again, as you exhale the breath, this time I want you to let yourself know you're beginning to feel completely refreshed and completely alert, very clear, very present, very energized. So we're going to do one last breath. So when you feel the next inhale come to you again, just gently help it out. Expand the breath. Take a deep breath from the diaphragm if you can, all the way up to the lungs. Hold the breath for just a moment. And as you exhale the breath, again, release the breath as evenly and smoothly as you can. And just notice you're beginning to feel even more refreshed and more alert and very clear and very energized and very present. And if you want an extra breath or two, just come out at your own pace. There's no rush. But when you do come back, I would ask you to please refrain from any talking until we all come back. Because some people take a little more time, which I think is a good thing. But again, just maybe take one last breath or so. Again, the same formula. Expand the breath a bit. And again, when you do come back, again, please refrain from any talking. So one of my favorite questions, I've only been doing that, Rex, love it. No, sorry, Rex, you take your time. It's kind of hard to believe this. I've been taking athletes through meditations for 29 years. I can't believe that. So I would say, anyway, this is one of my favorite questions asked afterward. If you were to play a game of baseball right now, or tennis, or shoot pool, or give a speech, or whatever, go do an interview, how do you think you would do now versus 15 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago when you first walked in here? It's a little tricky. It may be hard to remember exactly how you were. You probably have an idea. How do you think you would do on that interview, or if you had to pitch or hit right now versus 15 or 20 minutes ago before we did a practice, right? So this is where I need some feedback. Anybody want to volunteer their experience, kind of how they're feeling now versus 15, 20 minutes ago? Before I pick on you? How are you feeling right now versus 20 minutes ago?
Physically relaxed, mentally probably a little more alert.
A little more alert? So would you agree, compared to 20 minutes ago, that you'd be in a better position to, let's say, excel in a game situation or coach better, or, yeah?
Yeah.
And you don't have to say yes too, by the way. It's called leading the witness, son of an attorney. Yes, thank you.
Not worrying about stuff maybe that was on my mind a moment ago. Just free of what was maybe back here when I walked in the door.
Okay, so if you're in the batter's box, or you're on the mound, makes sense that you probably would be in a better position to excel. Okay. I need a couple more. Thank you.
I think it helps out the athletes who tend to get over-pumped, over-energized, anxiety. It'll be individualized. Some people might need to get moving a little bit. You can go on, but some might be able to
Slow.
talk rate, good tone.
Okay.
Be more focus, less chaos
Okay.
going on in the brain. You know, there's more present.
Present. How are you feeling right now? More present. Sorry, I got a call on you. How are you feeling right now? Focused? All right, just give me one word. How are you feeling right now compared to 20 minutes ago? Anything change?
2 words, at ease.
At ease? Thank you. What do you got?
Yeah, it's funny. At ease for me. Today's been a lot.
Yep.
Long day.
Yep.
A lot of information I'm trying to figure out how to apply.
Right.
Kind of been living in tomorrow. And felt kind of the first time in 8 hours or 9 hours, I'm kind of at peace for a few minutes. It's been pretty refreshing, actually.
Okay. So I would add peace and refreshing into your list, by the way. I'm listening to your words, right? So I would just ask you to ask yourself, Foxy, what do you got?
Relax.
Okay. I would just ask yourself right now, you don't have to say it out loud, just pick a word or two of how you may have changed. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're more stressed now, I don't know, than you were before. I've done this a long time. It's almost automatic that when we come out of it, especially if it's more of a 15 to 20 minute exercise versus a 7 or 8 minute exercise, it can be profound. You become what you practice. If you study the zone state, words like immersion, relaxation, clarity, absence of future, absence of past, detached from outcome, right? Focus, instinctive. So when you do a meditation, call it whatever you want, breathing exercise, relaxation, what you're doing is you are now accessing, it's like ground balls and fly balls, you're actually practicing, you're putting yourself in a state that you're starting to be able to get more familiar with. That is the zone state, right? So I would take one word. If you want to be more relaxed, right, practice relaxation. That's what we did. If you want to be more peaceful, practice relaxation. Get more peaceful. If you want more focus. The problem is that mental practice is intangible to most people, right? If I show you a new curveball grip, and you throw it right away, now I have to use things like spin rate. In the old days, we would just say it had better snap to it. Can I still say that and get away with it? It has better snap, better depth. Jimbo, better depth. You see it right away, you feel it. I mean, if you're swinging a bat and you can't hit a home run, you keep hitting it 299, and then I reposition your hands, and all of a sudden you're hitting it 315, 320. Go to the golf range, right? That's pretty easy, right? We're at 240, and then all of a sudden we're at 280. Meditation's trickier. It's sort of like, yeah, it sounds good. The research is already done. By the way, the research has been out, Harvard Medical School, Stanford, Princeton, you go around the world, Cambridge. That's the irony. We're in a data stats era right now, and the data and stats are already done on meditation and the benefits. It's already done. It's already proven. So if you care about the kids, and this is not a guilt trip, but if we care about the kids and we know that they're on their phones all the time, they have the video game thing going, social media, not to mention the normal stuff that high school and college kids go through, pro kids. Are you kidding me with pro players? They have to worry about getting released. They have to worry about getting to the next level. They have to worry about their first big league camp. They have to worry about making a big league team. Whatever. It's all there. It's just there. Drama, one of my favorite words. It's all a bunch of drama. So don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself. The best thing you can do is start a practice for 3 or 4 days when you leave here. See how you feel. See if what you felt tonight maybe gets deeper, maybe it gets better. Maybe you discover other parts of you that felt better that you didn't feel tonight. I've done this a long time, and I can tell you right now, one thing about meditation is when you do it a few times and you have an aha moment, it's hard to get the cat back in the bag. You feel kind of, it's not a guilt, it's not like a real guilt feeling, it's kind of like I know better. It's sort of like there's a glass of water here, and there's a pint of Jack Daniels. And you're going to drink them both, all of it. And I think we all know what happens if we drink one or the other. And once you kind of touch that world of meditation or any kind of mental practice, I'll tell you what, I saw the greatest changes is that all of a sudden guys, we used to work with hitters too, and all of a sudden they're seeing the ball so much better. Clarity of mind. So you become what you practice. Whatever you want to practice and get better at, clarity, calmness, relaxation, focus, presence, then there's all the antis. Lack of stress, lack of anxiety, lack of worry, lack of future, lack of past. So those are all skills, by the way. So if you want to get better at skills, it makes sense to practice it. So I gave you a little practice. Last thing I'll say, and then we're going to move on, is if you go to YouTube and you keyword Jaeger mental talk, okay, I do a 45-minute talk where I get more into the process stuff too, but there's also a guided breathing exercise. In fact, I have a file I'm happy to send you. If you're on Twitter especially, you can DM me. I'll send it to you if you send me your email. You can also go to, I think it's contact at Jaeger Sports. if you want some more information. But I know this for sure, if you go to YouTube at least, there is a mental talk with a guided breathing exercise. And you can literally just sit there and go to the breathing exercise if you want and go through it. I would say do it as much, first for yourself, obviously. But if you're a coach, and I have young coaches come up to me all the time, whether it's here, ABCA, obviously Twitter, social media, it is unbelievable. I always tell the young coaches especially, if you really want to make an impact in this game, you're going to study the drive line on the Rapsodo and all this stuff. It's just out there. But if you really want to get a unique angle, which happens to be the most neglected and the most important part of the game, by the way, let's be clear about that. That's not a debate. I'm sorry. We all agree the game's 90% mental or more, and it's 99.9% at the big league level. Trust me, it just is. So let's get that clear. The numbers are there too. So if you believe in those numbers, then if you're not applying a practice, it just doesn't make sense. So I've been doing this since 1990, and I know the first 10 years I felt like I had 7 eyes, and I get it. It's just new. It's not new anymore. It is not new anymore, and I think it's a responsibility now as a coach. You're a caretaker of kids. It's not a guilt trip. If you don't do it, I'm sure you're still giving your kids plenty of love. But these kids are coming to practice every day from God knows what. They're coming to practice from whatever's going on social media. Did they play video games to 3 a.m. last night? There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of mental health stuff going on out there right now. If you could learn a 5-minute practice, what did I say at the area coach when we had our meeting? You do not have to be a sports psychologist. You do not have to be a meditation teacher. So you can kind of remove that piece. If you can learn a 5-minute, what I just took you through, if you can learn A, B, and C, and there's tons of information I can send you where you're going to feel very competent at taking your kids through Steve Smith, who spoke this morning. I've done a lot of stuff with Butch Thompson. And when Steve came over there, all of a sudden, we're doing meditations with Auburn. It's fun. Now Smitty knows how to do it. Scott and I with a group of guys at the area code, this is what we did. He goes back to Mississippi State now. He's got another tool now. He can take his kids through a breathing exercise. You didn't get your sports psychology degree since I last saw you, did you? Freddie Corral's behind me. Okay, we did it. Was that called Zoom, right? Freddie introduced me to Zoom. Frickin' love that, by the way. That was beautiful. He threw me in on that big old screen at Missouri. We had a nice meditation, right, Freddie? So I'm trying not to overwhelm you with angles, but I'm overwhelmed now. I'm doing stuff with Fred Corral, Scott Foxell, Butch Thompson, Scott Brown. I even took Tim Corbin through a meditation at the area code. I mean, to me, it's like it's coming. It's coming. I guess I'm going to end on that point. It's coming. Don't take my word for it. I would advise you to get ahead of the game because it's coming, and if nothing else, it's what the kids need. So I think I feel good at ending on that point. We're going to switch this briefly to any Q&A. If you have any questions about meditation or mental game, which we didn't really get into, like the process, we can do that. This is wide open. We can talk about some throwing stuff. This is the part where if there's look, you've been listening a lot for the last 2 days, and I didn't even want to talk this long, trust me. But if you have some questions, this will probably just turn into everybody talking about everything, right? I'll start off here a bit. We'll probably get Maxie up here in a little bit. So let's, first of all, any quick follow-ups to the meditation or how this relates to the game or implementation? Yes, we have a taker.
So I know you're talking about like the kids and, that this is a benefit for the kids, but in all honesty, it's a benefit for us. As well. I mean, our life is out of control, hectic, because, especially at the high school level, you're teaching all day, and if you're an athletic director, you have that, and then you go to practice, and the principal might have yelled at you that day, or you had a kid who aggravated your first, second, third, fourth hour, and so you need that breathing technique yourself, so I truly appreciate you sharing that with us. And then I also think about it as our end game is like that high fruit that you had talked about. And so we're climbing this tree and getting stuck all day and prickly all day, and so by the time you really get to the fruit, you're kind of aggravated. I live 2 minutes away from school, so my drive is awesome, right? But coming here from there and going here and in the airport and, you know, and so your mind kind of goes. So this was really good, and I appreciate it to kind of take us on into the rest of the night. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I had a coach come up to me, and that was one of the things he said to me. He goes, "Have you they do anything for coaches?" And I do. Getting Focused, Staying Focused, 1994. In the back of the book, it says for coaches only, so it's how coaches can take players through this. But thank you for the feedback. Anything else? Yes? Yes, great question. Traditionally, you want to do it first thing in the morning. A few reasons. One, the mind hasn't woken up yet to maybe 900 things yet, right? So the mind tends to be clearer and fresher from the night. Two, I love this analogy. If you start the morning out where you kind of create like a sanctuary, you create your space to get quiet, to get clear, to kind of be ready for the day. And usually the breath is part of that. What happens is as you get into the day, you kind of can use your breath as an anchor, sort of like a reference point, and you've been there already in the morning, so it's not like an empty anchor. I mean, it's like it really is there. Make sense? So the morning. And the other thing is, if for athletes that are real serious, like the pro side, I've dealt with a lot of professional players over the years, it's beautiful. They could do one at their hotel or at their apartment in the morning, and then especially like a starting pitcher that has that gap during BP, no one's in the clubhouse, you get another session in there. I worked with Dr. Brower back there, and I think, Jim, didn't you do some in the bullpen maybe at some point? He got away from the other guys. The other guys were looking at the stat sheets, which we didn't get a chance to talk about drama tonight, but Jim started finding his own space because he realized you become what you practice, right? So he wanted to start spending time being quieter and quieter. While all the other guys in the bullpen, he was in AAA at the time, were, you know, maybe like, why did that guy go up? Why did I not go up? Or if I get a couple more shutout innings, my area's going to go below 2 or below 3, all that stuff. And he realized, and by the way, the more you get into this world of meditation and being quieter, boy, the more you start seeing the drama, like the contrast is heavy. And so he did it in a nice way. He didn't ostracize himself, but he politely just started removing himself from the drama in the bullpen. And I was a bullpen guy my first year in college, and I can tell you, there's a lot of time to talk down there and create it morning, if you can. But I have one more caveat. At some point, the idea is the meditation is happening all day. So I'm going to throw something kind of deep at you. This is Palooza. We can go deep, right? The zone state, okay, this is kind of fun. The zone state, being in the zone, is always happening. The sun's always shining. Your breath is always happening. It's just a question of, are you distracted or diverted into something else? So the meditation, yes, you're formally doing it in the morning when you can kind of control things and not have to be on the phone or the freeway or drive a car. So you can tend to get maybe a lot deeper. But the idea is you take your meditation with you, because it's always going. And I say that because a lot of people think the zone is this state that you have to get to like far away, really rare, like, oh my God, he was in the zone. It's like super rare. The zone's here. It's always happening. It's just whether or not you're distracted and out of it. Does that make sense? Next time you're lost in a good song or a good movie or like watching a beautiful sunset, you realize, oh yeah, the zone is here. I wasn't thinking about anything for the last 4 minutes. I was gone. Make sense? Yeah. Baseball's tricky and so is golf because there's a lot of dead time. And the dead time gives us a lot of opportunity to leave the zone, right? That's why I like hockey players and football players, other than the kicker and maybe the quarterback and receivers. But basketball, a lot of it, other than free throw shooting maybe, they can just roll. They're going. Golf, baseball. Those are the tricky ones, the dead time. Yep.
It's kind of the way to make sure that what you've done right there and getting present, I guess from a situation standpoint, our guys, I'm kind of putting myself in their shoes. They go through it, kind of find themselves, and then we say move right into free throw. And that's the time where they're kind of talking smack to each other, and it's an opportunity for them to catch up on all that stuff. What's kind of the expectation or the way to make sure that what they've just done doesn't sort of I don't know, maybe get cut off or something because they jump right back into it, or is the expectation that what they've just done should carry over into the next 20, 30, 45 minutes rest of practice?
I mean, I think it does carry over because it happens organically. But listen, if you go out and they're still talking and having fun, playing catch and all that, that's just part of it too. That's just life. They're doing their thing. I mean, as long as they're not doing things that are counterproductive. But it tends to stay with them, and they tend to want to be quieter when they're playing catch. It just happens. You know, one thing about meditation, until you really do it consistently, it's hard to, well, you can have this experience once, of course, but when you touch a very deep place, like the zone state, and you know why you're in there, like you just got quiet, it is so powerful. I don't mean like powerful, infomercial powerful. I mean, it is so powerful that you're like, I don't want to talk to him. You know, I use Jim again as an example. You know, he got to a point, he just literally had to remove himself. The drama was so intense. He just wants to be quiet and clear and have a focal point and attach the process we didn't talk about tonight. He just wanted to be quiet with his breathing that he was practicing all the time and getting him peaceful and relaxed and focused. And we talked about, you know, I talk about the process, have a focal point, attack it. Keep it simple, focal point, attack, focal point, attack. That's his world. That's the world of that pitcher. So all of a sudden you just start realizing, I don't want to talk a lot right now. You can, but you start really wanting to be in a quiet place. Because my partner, Jim, has this line, Jim Vatcher, who Jim knows too, it feels good to feel good. It's one of the funniest lines I've ever heard. He said it one day at a clinic. I just thought it's the funniest line. It feels good to feel good. And then one day it really just hit me. Like when you're like hitting 480 after the first month of the season, right? It feels good. You're rolling. You're just, so meditation helps you feel, really can position you to feel really good. You know, I'm going to say this probably like only 11 more times or until there's only a few of us left. You become what you practice. If I could go back in time, I'll tell you the things that I'd be meditating probably 30, 40 minutes a day, because you know why? I now know. What are my keys to my performance as a pitcher, hitter, golfer, tennis player? Quiet. Really quiet, really free, really loose, trust, instinctive. I want to immerse myself in those qualities every day. Make sense? Yep.
Do you do any activities with the players for them to understand when they feel they're in their zone, and then also helping them understand what their distractors are? Like that takes them out of the zone, like the journaling or anything?
It's a good question because it brings us to the process that we haven't talked about, we kind of talked about, which is when I work with an athlete, especially a baseball player, I'm going to find out what one or two things are the keys to them making the best pitch of their life now, forever. And they can tweak it, but it happens pretty quickly. They find it out pretty fast. So once you establish the process, if you will, like for me as a hitter, it's see the ball well and hit it hard. That's it. That's what I have to do great. Like I want to be Bruce Lee, 10th degree black belt. It's seeing the ball well and hitting it hard. That's my mantra. Pitching, it's even easier, the ball's in my hand. Breathe with my hitting one. Breathe, focal point, attack. I don't want anything else. So once I've established that, here's the cool part. It took 29 years to get to this point. Well, it took 24 years. I've been doing this for about 5 years. Once you establish that, everything else is drama. Everything else is a distraction. Everything else is anxiety. Everything else is tension. If you leave your process, you're not a bad guy or gal, but you are now into drama. So to answer your question is if you can get your players, I tell pitching coaches, have your pitcher's process written down, right? Breathe, focal point, attack, whatever it is for them, it's theirs. It's intrinsic, it's for them, right? Once they have it, you can call them out in a bullpen, you can call them out in the game, even a visit to the mound in the middle of the game. You can just say, hey, scale of 1 to 100, how's your process doing? I got your card right here, your 3x5. You said, coach, balance point and attack. If I do that, I will make the best pitch of my life. How's that been going the last 3 or 4 pitches, 0 to 100? Oh, coach, maybe like a 30. He can tell you that he's stressed or anxiety or worried about the umpire or worried about an error. To me, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. National championship game, practice game in September. It's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with anything. It's outcome. Are you great at your process? Make sense? You find those three constants, everything else is a variable. Make sense? Thanks. Do you want to talk at all about throwing, any of that stuff, or do you want to get on with the night? Yeah.
What do you think about reading as a strategy between games or a doubleheader? In terms of like leaving in the sympathetic state temporarily and kind of getting a little relaxation before you head into the game 2?
To me, it's 100%er. I mean, I'm preparing for a game, right? What's the first thing I want to prepare for a game? I want to get my mind right. I want to get my body right. The mind, I forgot who was talking about it today, maybe James, right? Thoughts create the emotions, create so on and so forth. I want to get my mind right. I want to get clear and quiet and relaxed, even if I just ramped up and had some adrenaline. Because listen, here's the other thing about sports. I'm not worried about a guy speeding up. I've heard people say this before. Is it possible, yes, to get too slow from being too relaxed? I get that. Not much, but maybe it happens to some. But for the most part, I'm not worried about a guy speeding up. I'm way more concerned about slowing him down. So yes, it sounds a little bit at first like, well, between games you really want to crash a little bit, if you will. Absolutely. It's sort of like post-throwing arm care, right? And by the way, Auburn did a study about post-throwing arm care, which is interesting, and they found, which I'm surprised it's not out there in the world yet because this was 3 years ago, that at the end of practice, this is actually with the softball team, Coach Myers told me this, they went out and they threw again. They went out and threw maybe only out to 90 feet or so, which for baseball might be 150 feet. So see what I'm saying? It's like you can pick it back up. It's recovery and then it's build up again. But it's a good question. What's that?
Cool down. They swim
Yeah?
laps.
Yeah? Yeah?
First of all, thank you for earlier today and then your body of work over the last how many years. I read everything you've done. Obviously, huge fan. But one of the things I want to talk about is your year-round throwing. Loved it. Where I'm from, there's significant pushback towards that whole concept, and I'm sure many moons ago, where you're from, there might have been some as well back then. How did you? I don't want to use the word sell it to your athletes, but what were some strategies you used to try to calm the fears of maybe perhaps parents that don't want their son to throw more than they already do? It seems to be it's like the one thing the Warriors are supposed to get better at by doing less of, and it's always a very difficult argument for me to have. Not an argument, but it's a tough sell to some people about throwing more and kind of following your work with the year-round programs and stuff like that. So maybe some strategies you encountered early on that helped make it an easier sell to people that maybe were a little bit ignorant to, what we now know.
First of all, thank you for the kind words. First of all, the manual is called Year-Round Throwing Manual, but as you know, it's not intended that you throw year-round. But I would say this. Randy Sullivan's name will probably come up a number of times if we get throwing program questions, and one of the reasons why is because I stole this line for an article, your body's made to move. I think there's a misconception about throwing year-round. Throwing year-round doesn't mean you have to long toss every day. It doesn't mean you have to pull down every day. In fact, you might go into a 6-week roll where you don't go out past 60 to 90 feet 3 times a week. I know Scherzer doesn't, I don't think, ever take off any time. I can't name the team because he told me at lunch to not bring it up, but they experiment. They've been backing up more and more now from the end of September of the season. Instead of starting to ramp up active rest maybe in like November, this is big leaguers now. One guy who was their closer, I think, took off 11 days from the end of the season. Now it's a deload, if you will, light throwing, and it's a lot of light throwing for a while. And then maybe he'll cruise into December 1st and then really start to ramp up for spring training. So I think it's a very tough question because you're not necessarily promoting year-round throwing. When I think of year-round throwing, I think of kids playing summer ball, winter ball, like pitching all the time as an example. I'm all for more sports. I think diversity is the spice of life. Someone probably made that famous, right? I'm all for diversifying, but I do think there's a misconception too of taking off too much time. I'm not talking about young kids. They're supple, they can get away with a lot. But once you start hitting puberty, 14, 15, 16, and here's the last thing I'll say about the topic. You're selling them on throwing and arm conditioning, arm training. You're not selling them on pitching. And that's a major difference. And I think that would be one strategy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I share something? Oh, you
Abs-
have a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, if you have a question.
Yeah, but you can still jump.
So like
You
I
d-
have to deal with that a lot too. What age bracket?
All ages, coach. I mean,
Okay, so same, right? So, we've had cases, and this is good stories to tell, where the kids are growing, right? And when they're growing, sometimes they have trouble finding their limbs and finding their levers, and we've had situations where guys took time off, and it took a really long time to find their pattern again, and it was ineffective. And kind of like what we talked about earlier, like throwing is about efficiency, so like the pattern has a lot to do with it, and if you're not throwing like consistently with those specific players, like the following year, we kind of deloaded, but we just kept them throwing footballs light, playing catch, like just not as heavy. But a lot of the stuff that we do isn't focused on at like high effort levels anyway. Like we want to make it easy. So I don't think there's anything wrong with throwing year round or playing catch. It just depends on like how you're going about it. And then an example you can use for them would be if you took say you wanted to run 10 miles tomorrow. Like I know if I tried, my knees would probably feel like crap. If I started with a mile and did that for a week and consistently went up, I would get better and easier. My body would adapt to the demands. But then if I took 4 months off and tried to go run 10 miles, that would be stupid. So like keeping them moving, like Alan said, like just, with them, just use logic as much as possible.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. It's great when you have resources like back here that can just jump in. What was that?
Got it from you.
I got dinner later. Thanks, man. Yes, fire away.
Going back to the meditation,
Yes.
how are they creating a control group to determine whether or not there's actually,
How are they creating a control group?
to determine whether or not there's actually success or not, versus just coincidence, or what are they even measuring? Like, are you taking one person who's going through meditation versus another not? Because now you have two different people who can have two different outcomes.
I don't know enough about the research with control groups and per se control groups, but I will say this. They can put, let's say with like old school electrodes, right? They could do measurements and do like a before and after. There's a great book that I researched. I did a lot of research for my book, The Relaxation Response. Dr. Herbert Benson, Harvard MD. He did studies at Harvard. He actually did studies on the Maharishi, who started transcendental meditation. He was the famous guy with the Beatles, right? And he actually had him in his lab, whatever you want. And in his book, he talks about the before and after physiological effects. But again, I don't know enough about control, and it's a great question, but I would just say this, the research is just off the charts nowadays with the high tech and what they can see is happening to the brain. It's just overwhelming now, the effect, the benefits that are happening, and stuff like neuroplasticity is a popular term now, right, and stuff like that. And so at the end of the day, I think that the research I'm familiar with is just really what's happening with the individual person, what's the effect on meditation from maybe a baseline, right, and then after.
But how do you know what the before and after? You're taking one moment in time versus another moment in time.
Well, let's just,
It's not necessarily causation, there might be a correlation, but not necessarily a causation.
I would punt that to the people doing the research. My guess is that these are highly, highly trained people, Harvard MD, whatever the basic fundamentals they need to go through to make it clearly, proven research. But again, nowadays with Google, just Google and, meditation research benefits. Whatever baseline they're establishing, they feel good about the baseline. Maybe they've studied someone over a month period of time. Maybe they've measured stress levels, anxiety levels. I mean, again, it's more physiological than that, right? So I can't give you the answer. I can only tell you that if you do the research, you'll see it's pretty powerful. I mean, Time magazine 8-10 years ago, it's on the front cover. I mean, that's when this stuff really started breaking. Mindfulness, all this stuff came in. But unfortunately, I'm not that doctor, I'm not that guy. I haven't done the research myself. But it's there. In fact, if you can track me down after you look at it and tell me what you found, I'm open to that. And also, I know this is anecdotal, it's experiential. I've been meditating for like 30 plus years, and I've been doing meditations with people, and it's just overwhelming, the consistent feedback. And I understand it's not technically science, but I think anything that is predictable repeatedly over and over and over, and again, we can argue that being anecdotal, it's just blatant at this point, you know, so. But I understand on a science level, I know where you're going, but it's, look at Dr. Herbert Benson. Yes, sir?
On a podcast, you kind of started diving into some thoughts on hypermobile athletes and long toss, and it kind of stopped after that. I'm curious if you could dive in a little deeper with your thoughts on that.
That's straight Eric Cressy, man. Eric was the first guy to kind of stop me in my tracks a little bit, because look, you can't say absolutes, right? In my 29 years of teaching long toss, it just seems like there's just been a striking correlation with the benefits of it. So one day I was probably talking to Eric about it, and he stopped me and he said, look, you know, it's not necessarily for everybody, like, you know, because, you know, and he made a great point. He talked about hyper flexible guys, and so I guess, you know, Eric talks about those guys maybe need to tighten up. That's the way he said it, right? So there wasn't probably any more comment to it other than just, you know, you have to be sensitive to the fact that it's possible that long toss is not ideal for a percentage of the population, the hyper flexible guy, for instance. Or maybe, you know, I'm all about individuality. Someone comes to me and they've been throwing 120 feet their whole life and it's working for them. I'm going to still suggest strongly that they look at some other things, but if they're progressively getting better and better and better, the problem is some guys will come to you and they're doing well in a restricted kind of throwing environment. And you give it a year or two, and then you start to see the decline, whether it's velocity, recovery period, feel, max effort versus effortless life on the ball. So I'm a very reasonable person. I try to not put pressure on people ever. I just try to be a suggester based on a lot of experience and a lot of feedback. But the hyper flexible guy, I just say, I mean, literally, I think the guy, if he looks like he's a contortionist, but I have rarely, that I know of, run across that player. So I'm sorry, I don't really have a better answer for you than that. Yep.
Max, anything on that? With
Max, yeah.
guys with especially like just the deload phasing and actual rest time, especially like college-wise. I've talked to Joel and some other guys in this too, like they don't have that moment of, hey, we can't get that guy 2 months off. There's really nowhere in their phase of development. So just kind of the deloading and getting into the on-ramping and what's your thought and so on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
I'll stand for those over there.
My name is Max Wiener. I don't know if I have a perfect answer for you, but I can posit something just very different. Rather than thinking about someone as hypermobile or hyperflexible, whatever term you mentioned, a simple but maybe not perfect way to think about it maybe is this athlete a speed-based thrower or a strength-based thrower? It's not perfect physiologically to think that way, but are they super twitchy, or are they reducing their velocity based on the positions they're in, or how they can leverage those positions? And pretty much one way to sort of work in and out with that, with the freedom to long toss, is to understand some guys who are massively twitchy, and we see this in professional baseball, really don't know how to down-regulate much. So if you're throwing 95, a real easy day for them, a lot of our Latin players especially are still 87, 88, and we see it all the time. It's crazy. So when we get a guy who may be incredibly mobile or super twitchy or speed-based thrower, what we would ask them to do is maintain what feels natural in a sense, but we really want to control the volume. So as volume rises, right, we would want that to be a very heavy day, and that's what we would say relative to a strength-based thrower who's throwing a ton. So if a guy's producing his velocity via speed and twitchiness rather than positions, we're going to ask him to throw less but have more meaningful reps. And we wouldn't necessarily put a number on the feet or the throws. We certainly looked into it quite a bit, but we would just say, look, you sort of have this barometer in your body of like feel, and Alan talks about it quite a bit, but just having an understanding of if you're going to ask a guy who's twitchier, you'd probably want to look for more meaningful reps rather than a huge volume of reps, whereas if say you have someone like me, who's not the best athlete in the world, the only way that I'm going to produce what I have is by logging a tremendous amount of reps to build what would be like work capacity. So rather than tight versus loose, probably think more about tissue quality and what sort of, I guess, body profile you're trying to do in this sense. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's great, man. Thank you for cueing. I needed the assist right there. Big time. Anything else? Okay, so let's do this. You're free. I will hang out here if there's anybody that wants to ask anything. Sometimes people like to talk more privately, so I will be here. Also, there are unbelievable resources in this room. So obviously feel free to chat it up, and I don't know what's going on out there if there's any BYOB stuff, but I guess I just want to end on saying, number one, thank you, because as I said earlier, it is a huge effort. The high, I'm going to use that analogy now, I like that one, the high picking fruit, it says something about you that you made a massive effort, a massive sacrifice to get here, so thank you. And two, resource-wise, I would just say try to get to that YouTube video, Jaeger Mental Talk, if you want to delve into this more. And if you're on Twitter, I'm pretty good on DM, if you DM us, if you have any questions and all that. But again, I'll be hanging out here. If you didn't get a Breathe bracelet, you earned it. So make sure you grab one of those on the way out. And again, I really appreciate you all coming, and have a great rest of the night, and we'll probably see you out there tomorrow.